exams, don't we? We'd never get any good weather only for them.
That's it. That's it. Somebody has to take the fall each year. So Dan, that's what we're actually here to chat about today. You're the principal of the tuition centre, and there is ways to try and navigate the state exams. It is something that comes for every person, and you just kind of need to do your best to grin and bear it. So I suppose, what could we do to try and help our young people who are
Well, I suppose what I've tended to talk about lately is for young people what they shouldn't do. I
okay?
mean, everyone kind of knows, I suppose, at this stage what we should do or what kids should do in terms of getting to sleep and whatnot. But
Mm-hmm.
a big part, like I taught leaving certs for 23 years,
Okay.
and a big part of the last 4, 5, 6, 7 days that I did with them was what not to do. And one of the big things that we would recommend you don't do is, with the prevalence of social media and whatnot now, is listen to so-called predictions. Now,
Oh,
I've actually no problem with predictions. I taught geography for 23 years. I give predictions to students,
yeah,
but it's so important that they realize that these are guesses and not guarantees.
yeah,
And there is an awful lot out there in social media now, people who aren't teachers, who've never taught, and they just want a few clicks. So they'll say, I can lock in exactly what's coming up in the English exam, and they don't know. To be fair, and
yeah,
students are really vulnerable at this time of the year. So I would say to them, you know, fair enough, have a look at some predictions. Get them from people like teachers who know what they're talking about, not people who are just looking for a bit of clickbait, and realize that those predictions, even from me, who I've done it for such a long time, they're still guesses. They're definitely not guarantees, you know?
yeah.
So that would
And
be
an interesting thing that I've seen here that you said is that there's no point studying after 9 o'clock at night. I always would have been a study to about 10 o'clock and then try to get up again really early before the exam. But that you're saying that you're probably hurting yourself more than you're helping
Oh yeah,
yourself.
yeah, you definitely are now. Like I've my daughter's doing the Leaving Cert this year, so
Oh,
I'm
God love her.
battling on every front, and I'm literally saying to her, she's studying until 11 now at the moment at night, and I'm saying, look, you have to, as you come closer to the exam,
Mm,
you have to pull it back. I mean, a tired mind will create problems, and a rested mind will solve them.
yeah,
So it's fine studying late, even this week, but certainly the minute you come into exam week, and I would say exam week starts on Monday, even though they start on Wednesday,
yeah,
it's far more important. I would cut the cord 7, 8 o'clock at night, and then there's very little value in studying the morning of the exam either. I know the tendency is to pull stuff out, but what you're going to see the morning exam is you're going to see stuff you don't know, and that's going to worry you. And you want to go into the exam saying, I know what I know. There's so much choice in all the exams now because a lot
yeah.
of those COVID regulations that we brought in, our guidelines, are still there. So there's these huge options in the exam. You don't need to know everything. Don't worry about what you don't know. Walk in there, stick to your timing. Your teacher will have given you timing. You're gonna be fine. The papers are marked relatively easily.
And in the marking as well, um, there's I suppose criteria that the Department of Education kind of need to meet. So they need so many H1s, H2s. They need so many X, Y, Zs. So if you feel like you had an absolute stinker of a paper, chances are everyone else feels the same way.
Exactly, exactly. You're like a teacher yourself, Donna-Marie. In fairness, you know what you're
Oh,
talking about.
I
Um,
think the leaving cert has just haunted me. I think that's
yeah,
what it is.
look, I think like there's two words that haunt leaving certs. Two simple
Mm.
words: hard paper. I mean,
Oh,
this is all they worry about. Is it going to be a hard paper? What if it's a hard paper? So I do have a little secret for leaving cert students, and the secret is there's never a hard paper. Now, what I mean by that is I know people who've set leaving cert papers. I set mock papers for 20 years.
hmm.
No setter will ever go down and say, "Oh, I'm going to get them this time." You know, they'll never say it. In
Mm.
fact, it's actually the opposite. The person who sets your leaving cert paper, they're actually terrified of setting something too hard. Because the way it works then it comes around to correcting is we're all, let's say 400 people around the country are correcting leaving cert English, let's
Yeah.
say. They all have to correct their first 20 papers first.
Right.
And then they send those results in, and they have to be done in the first 2 days. And
Ooh.
then up at headquarters, they look at the results from the first 20 of every examiner, and then they say, right, if we factor that in across the whole population, how many H1s, H2s, H3s will be? And if it looks like they're not going to have enough H1s, they'll change the marking scheme to make it easier. So
That's
what
so
I would say to
interesting.
students is it might feel in the exam like it's
Mm.
challenging, but all you got to do is put stuff down on paper.
Yeah.
Keep fighting because if it's hard for you, it's hard for everyone in the country, and we will change that marking scheme at the marking conference, and you will be fine.
That reminds me of my biology leaving cert exam. Our teacher always gave us the guidance of if you don't like ecology, it's always in one question, so just if you don't want to do it, forget about it and focus on other stuff. So there was me and a handful of other girls in my class who were like, right, that's what we're going to do. Because you just like something's it's either right or it's wrong. And I felt ecology could be a bit, you could write and write and write.
Yeah.
But whenever we went into the paper, there was a little ecology section in every question. And we came out, all the girls came out, big red eyes. We were like, oh my God, that was awful. And she met us at the door and she's like, it's okay, don't worry about it. And you know what? It was grand. And
It was.
everyone left there in tears. It was awful.
Yeah, we've a maths teacher, Owen O'Leary, and he'd be very well known across the country. But he has a
Mm.
wonderful saying for students because students can get very anxious in a maths exam, and it's really simple. It's if you don't know what to do, do what you know. So just put something down, and
Aye.
that'll get you started. And then you're going to just be hoovering up marks. So that is the big bit of advice. It's even if the paper feels challenging, don't worry.
Mm.
It's not a so-called hard paper. And by the way, not only is the person who sets the paper in your corner, the person who corrects the paper is a teacher trying to earn a few extra quid in the
Aye.
summer. They want you to do well.
Yeah.
They're not these big, bold examiners up in Athlone in the Department of Education who are out to get you.
Yeah.
We're all in it for you. Your
Mm.
teacher's in it for you. The person who sets the paper wants to set a fair paper, and the corrector. We're all in it for you. So all you got to do is do your best, and you're going to do fine.
Aye. There's things you can do as well that isn't really related to studying, but it's just being organised. Your timetables, knowing when is what, and keeping everybody informed. So, what kind of things can students do in that regard?
Well, like these are the basics, but it's amazing over the years. I mean, I worked in a school that dealt exclusively with leaving certs for a long time.
Mm.
And every single year, Donna-Marie, the exam would start and someone would arrive in 15 minutes late. And
Oh,
it's not really through any fault of their own. It's just this is such an emotional time for kids.
yeah.
They're so vulnerable. They can forget
Mm.
that an exam is this morning and not in the afternoon. So what I would say here is to parents, and the parents out there will know what I'm talking about. We're all wishing this leaving cert was over as much as the students. But I would say to parents, the one thing you do ask your kid, never ask them why are they not studying, never ask them what they should be studying, leave them be. But
Mhm.
the one thing I would say to parents is, give me your timetable.
Yeah.
And then have that timetable as a parent, and you can say to your son or daughter, best to look at home ec in the morning, and it'll just refresh them because it does sound ridiculous that kids might forget what exam they've on, but this actually does happen and it happens a lot. So I would say to kids, use your parents. Parents, this is the only time you get involved. Don't tell them what to study, when to study, how to study. Just make sure you know when their exams are on.
I remember what we used to do as well was we had our timetables on the fridge, and whenever you came in, you got to just scribble it out, and it was done. You never had to do it again. Well, for leaving
It's,
cert
it's,
anyway.
it's, it's a
Which is
wonderful thing. My daughter and her friends have planned a bonfire out our garden for all their books at the
oh
end of the
oh
exam.
my
So yeah, they're
brilliant.
cathartic moments. Like, and that would bring on to one other little thing, I suppose, that is important when you do talk about the friend group.
Mm.
I mean, you will hear amongst kids, and girls get particularly anxious over this. I need to get
Yeah,
560 points to get my course. Or biology's tomorrow. I need a H1 in that.
yeah,
So it would be really important for kids to understand and students to understand that the minute you say I need something, you're putting pressure on yourself. Because
yeah,
I've heard people, Donna Marie, come out of the leaving cert, get the results, 500 and something points, amazing, and be disappointed because they didn't get their course. So if you set a target for yourself, I need to get 560 in the leaving cert,
mm.
and you get 540, well then very strangely you're going to be disappointed, which is ridiculous. It's an amazing leaving cert.
Yeah,
480 is an amazing leaving cert. So I would say let's not set targets in terms of points and say I need that. Let's not say I need a H1 in this subject. Let's go into the subject, do your best.
mm.
The result will look after itself. And that is really important in that peer group. Never compare yourself to your friend. This is your leaving
Yeah,
cert. And at the end of it, in your hands, if you can imagine them, you're going to have points. Now,
hmm,
if they're 270, 374, 70, who cares? They're yours. You earned them. And
mm.
you can do anything you want with those points now. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what your friend gets. It doesn't matter what your brother got. You earned these points. And the world is your oyster with them now.
And what's important as well, you kind of mentioned there, not to compare yourself to others, but to surround yourself with the right people as well. There'll be people who don't really give a hoot about their exams, and they're going to take a different course in life, and that's, I suppose, for some people that is fair enough. But you know, put yourself in a group of motivated people would, I suppose, would be a really good help as well.
Oh, 100%. Again, you should have been a teacher because you will see this. I always saw this in the last month. As you said, some people, and God, more power to them, they're
Mm,
going a different route, going not academic route. Some people maybe had wanted to go academic route, but haven't really worked all year. And as they come to the end, they know, well, I'm kind of out of this. It's not going to work for me.
yeah.
So I would say to students, like I have a friend who's involved in pensions and stuff, and he's their line on their office is always stick to the plan.
Yeah.
So it's very important not to be dragged away
Mm.
by the fine weather, by nights out as you
Mm-hmm.
come into the leaving cert, by your friends even who have finished their exams before you.
Yes.
Because my daughter's going to be doing her exams up till the 24th. Her friends are finished, I think, on the 17th.
Does she do music?
So we're not saying it's easy, but it's
Yeah.
challenging. You have to try and keep that focus. Let those guys go and party. Let them go off to the
Uh-huh.
beach. Let them do X, Y, and Z. It's not easy, but you'll be really glad of it. As you said perfectly, surround yourself with the right people.
It is. We were the same. We did music and it was like an extra week. So we had like a gap and it was so hard, but you just need to, I suppose, find the courage to do it.
Well,
Um,
I'll ask my daughter to give you a ring and ask you how you coped with it, Donna-Marie. So, because that's a tough week, that big long week, I would imagine.
Not very well, probably what I'd say to her. There is then some other things that you can do. It's the basics. Get your sleep, get your food, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it is. And like, I often would listen to radio shows and when this part would come on, I'd say, oh, here we go again. But there's a reason cliches are
Mm,
cliches. It's because they're so true.
yeah.
I mean, sleep for me, in terms of before exams or before anything I do in life, sleep is everything. If I'm not rested, I can't do it.
Mm,
And equally, food. I mean, very simple stuff, but you gotta eat in the
yeah.
morning before an exam. It doesn't matter what it is, a bagel or
Mm,
whatever, but you gotta put something into your body before an exam. I mean, some of these kids have got 2, 3 hour exams in one day.
mm-hmm.
I don't think, I certainly think at my stage of life, I couldn't do it anymore.
Oh, God, me
So
neither.
if you're not rested, if you haven't had a bite to eat, you're going to find it hard. So
Mm,
make sure you do it. And like, I would say the second thing, socialize and get a bit of sun. We used to
yeah.
call it the SAS in my old school. There's nothing wrong with
Mm,
socializing
oh,
with your
yeah.
friends during exams. You need to do it.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with going out lying in the sun during exams. You need to do it. You
Mm,
should never feel guilty. If you've done your hard work, socialize, get your bit of
mm-hmm.
sun. You'll feel better about going back to do a bit of study the following day. So, it can't be all study, 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 study,
Yeah.
study. You got to look after yourself too.
Am I right in saying you can still bring in like sweets and water and stuff into the exam centre? Has that changed?
100%. 100%. You can bring in any sort of stuff like that. I suppose they'd probably frown on it if you brought in a breakfast roll, but you could definitely like sweets. I mean, anyone who's played sport will know. The
Mm,
sweets are a great thing to take at halftime,
yeah.
and to all intents and purposes, the Leaving Cert is like doing a marathon.
Oh, it
So
is.
I would definitely be bringing in my water, bringing in my sweets, bringing in everything they allow me to bring in. To be honest, and that's another small thing. If you look at each subject in the Leaving Cert, there's a certain amount of things you can bring in each subject. I mean, in geography, you're allowed to bring in something called an opsometer, which answers one of the very tough questions, actually. So I would say to students, there's a list at the department there. What is everything I'm allowed to bring in to help me in each exam? Get it and bring it in with you.
Yeah. And I'd say as a geography teacher, I just remember my geography teacher used to say, make sure you have your colour and pencils with you. So things like that there, check your pens, check your pencils, Tipp-Ex, whatever you need. Bring extra. It's you better looking at it than for it.
Yeah, I used to work with a fabulous biology teacher, and she used to have a phrase, a fully stocked pencil case. That was it.
It's half the
Make
battle.
sure you have a fully stocked pencil case. And she was so, I mean, these are simple things, but
Mm.
they're vital. They really are.
Aye. Because it can really freak you out if you go to pick up your pen and it stops working in an exam. It's
Yeah. And like in fairness, you bring up another point as well in terms of a little bit of panic in the exam. So
aye.
what I would say to Leaving Cert students is these are state exams.
Yeah.
So no matter how hard you've worked, there is going to be a point in the exam, and we all remember this, where you
Uh-huh.
get a little double heartbeat and you go,
Oh,
oh God, this section is really hard. Do you
making me
remember that?
sweat.
I remember it. So like what I would say to students there is, and it's not easy, but it's probably the best bit of advice I've given to students over the years, is when you come to that moment in the exam, what I call the challenging moment,
Mhm.
whether it's maths or biology or chemistry or physics, it makes no difference. It will happen in probably 4 to 5 of your papers.
Mhm.
What I would say is it is a choice as to how you react. So in that moment, remember that guy you heard on Highland Radio with Donna-Marie saying, you can choose how to react. So you can say to yourself, here's the challenge. Now I'm going to choose to react well here.
Mhm.
I'm going to fight really hard. I'm going to get this section done with, get as many marks as I can, and I'm going to move on with the rest of the paper because the rest of the paper will probably be fine. Some people, they react poorly in the exam. They get up, they go to the bathroom, they have a cry, they come back in during the exam.
Did that.
What I would say is while it's not easy, and emotion is a big part of exams, there is that moment where you can try and say to yourself, I'm going to choose to react well to this challenge. I'm going
Mhm.
to fight like hell in this section and I'm going to move on. And that's the one most students have come back to me over the years and said, you were so right. I
Yeah.
turned to this section, geocology, or ecology and biology, and it was a double heartbeat moment. But I said, look, I'm going to choose to react well. I'm going to fight really hard, and then I'm going to move on.
And then I suppose we'll finish up on, I think, my favourite exam cliche, which is read your questions.
Oh
So
well, look, I'll
important.
tell you, yeah. I mean, and I even in my early years of teaching, I was laughing at that read your questions until I started correcting the exam.
Yeah.
And like there is one element to reading questions, kind of a technical element, which is you got to read them from the top down. Now
Yes.
that sounds like a cliche, but if you look at most questions, as I said, I set mock papers for a long time. There's a heading, there's a little premise at the first bit, then there's probably like a graph or something, and then there's the question.
Yeah.
And what students do amazingly, Donna-Marie, they go straight to the question, then they look up to find the
Mm-hmm.
answer. Whereas if you start from the top down, read the topic, look at what's above it, then go to the
Yeah.
question below, then you'll actually be remembering the answer rather than looking for it. So
Uh-huh.
it is a cliche, but it's so true. I mean, the last thing I'll tell you, for not caught for time, I had years ago when I was teaching geography the most wonderful student. And a question came up, I'll never forget it on the Leaving Cert. Examine how plate tectonics helps us understand the global distribution of volcanoes. And she wrote the most amazing answer on how plate tectonics helps us understand the global distribution of earthquakes. She just,
Oh,
and this was one of the
that's
best girls. I
heartbreaking.
remember her name. It's the same as my daughter's name. Her name was Alice. Now, she still did
Poor
very
Alice.
well, but it just goes to show you it can happen. The
It can
best
happen.
students take your time, read it twice.
Perfect. Dan, thank you so much. We'll actually leave it up there. And I suppose just best of luck to everyone now starting their exams.